Tell people if the amount of money I spent in building my first prototype, if I'd invested in maybe P-Stack or Florida Wave, because I heard when they were coming up, we were all in Yaba at that time. I heard about them. People actually told me, hey, come and invest here. If I put $200,000, $300,000 in P-Stack or Florida Wave, I would be chilling right now.
So please tell us your names and the role you play at Kifta Technologies.
Okay, so I'm Monsuru Anifowose. I am founder CEO of Kifta Technologies. We are an integrated defense company that provides access to African countries the necessary infrastructure for protection and security of its critical assets, living spaces, and its people in general.
Okay, Macdonald, Ukah. A lot of people increasingly call me by my middle name Gunna, which is fun too. I like that. I'm an economist. I'm co-founder of Kifta Technologies. To buttress this point, it was envisioned really to fill what we consider was a gaping hole in the defense security technology space, indigenize it essentially for African economies, because the traditional model is that we rely on external expertise, external hardware, external infrastructure to address what is a critical both public policy imperative as well as also something that the private sector needs to pay critical attention to and not entirely outsource to the public sector.
So let's talk about backstory. I'm just interested in what gave you guys the confidence to go into the space. So like maybe
Should I take that?
Yeah,
You take that.
So like first of all, what's your background?
His audacity is
Exactly
greater than mine.
What's your background and why defense tech? Because it's just everybody's fintech.
Okay, so my BS is from Chemical Engineering, University of Lagos. I think my first foray in business gave the rise for this. So I also own a textile manufacturing company.
Okay.
And the challenges I encountered in terms of interstate trade, security issues, loss of goods I think that was the selfish reason I said we need to find a way of
Around this,
securing our
space for
Hmm.
whether it's the economy or whether it's just our lives, just.
So that was just the motivation.
Yeah, I had a problem. It was a big problem. I had a time where I sent items from Lagos to Kano and the whole container disappeared.
Just like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
So there were huge gaps in the country's, there are huge gaps in the country's security architecture that I felt we could do a bit more to
flog.
But I'm still interested in. Okay, you want to say something?
What I was doing, it doesn't elaborate on what he's saying because my path to this is kind of different. So this is coming together of a meeting of minds with different motivations, and it probably has a bit of a fairy tale, forgive me, a fairy tale coloration to it. The story for me at that point where I was becoming an adult biologically, so around when I turned 18 and all of that, there were developments. If you want to be specific, Fox's 24. The series, Jaguar, all of that. Particularly one of the seasons. I'm serious. It sounds funny, but at least what it seeded was not an aspiration to become somebody in this space. No, what it seeded was a very elevated interest in what's going on in that space, even if it was far removed from here, from our reality.
Yeah.
And so when somebody comes along and says, "This is what I'm doing," okay. I'm going to get into it. And let me say specifically, when he showed me a demonstration of his first prototype, okay, this is not a joke. This is not pie in the sky.
So
Let's get
so let's get to how you sold into it. So you're running your business. I'm assuming you started running from school, you said?
Yes.
That was the textiles business. What was it exactly?
It's not just textiles you've done that. You've dabbled into
Textiles the main.
Yeah, textiles the main.
I was feeding the boy.
No, tell us everything. All the businesses you run.
Okay, so I also had a tourism company where we kind of like.
They tried to do something.
We tried to do something. We tried to do something. No, I'm not going to tell the story. But the only successful part of that company was that we were selling F1 tickets.
Okay.
Yeah, but
F1 tickets.
yes.
To the F1 Formula 1 racing.
Yes.
Like not in Nigeria, but like out.
To Nigerians that wanted to
go out.
That wanted to go.
So
Okay.
we're selling F1 tickets. So that was one part of it. Let's leave that aside. The textile thing is still an ongoing thing for me. Is he has his 9 to 5 where he's kicking ass. I have my textile where
You guys went to school.
No.
Okay.
No.
We'll get there.
Do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, we're gonna tell it. I'm gonna tell the story. The textile thing was, I don't know, it was just too many problems, too many bottlenecks. Security issues. I wasn't even really concerned about the problems with trade or logistics. It was just, I just want my items to get to my destination safely. Why do my items always have to miss? Why do I have missed items and I go to report and they say there's nothing they can do about it? And that is for me, who was at that time a main player in the market, Lagos Island here.
Like you used to supply textiles.
Yes.
To outside Lagos and all.
Yeah, even outside the country. I have customers in Benin Republic, Togo. So if I could be facing these things, imagine the small and medium people who just, I don't know, through the internet, were trying to sell to, even if it's little pieces to get. So it was just a problem. Coupled with other things that I might not be able to divulge in terms of national security and what was going on in the country at the time. I just figured, I want to do this. The audacity, I just decided I want to do this. I knew nothing about UAVs. I read chemical engineering. We didn't do anything about UAVs. My best physics was in year 1, FSC, 105. So
It's part of the story.
So he knows nothing. You did that in Unilag. But he used to tell people, like I tell people, I respect people that graduate of physics more than any other person. You don't even want to go there in that department. So I was thinking I want to do something that had to do with physics, mechanical engineering, and aeronautics engineering. I had no idea. But as someone from a business background, I figured out, I use an OEM, an ODM model. I just started researching companies that were able to build UAVs. My idea behind UAVs of all things was like, at least if my containers were going and I had the ability to have a UAV that would be monitoring it, I didn't even want a tracker. Trackers get disabled. I just want something that will monitor it to the destination. That was the reason. It might have been a stupid reason.
100% selfish reason.
That's why I said it was a selfish reason, but I needed it. That's what I wanted at the time. And there weren't any drones that are available at that time couldn't go that far. So I wanted to build something. So that was the reason. So I got into it, used an OEM model, like I said. And I just went at it. And basically, I never talked about it. I had people, obviously, I had people I was with at the time, but no one actually knew I was doing this. Everyone just knew I was into textile. Because I had no prototype. I wasn't going to come to anyone and say, I'm doing defense, I'm building UAVs. People look at me. This was like 2014, 2015. Are you stupid? What are you doing? Fintech was even just kicking up.
Yeah.
In fact, I tell people, the amount of money I spent in building my first prototype, if I'd invested in maybe P-Stack or Florida, because I heard when they were coming, we were all in Yaba at that time. I heard about them. People actually told me, come and invest here. If I put $200,000, $300,000 in P-Stack or Florida, I would be chilling right now. I'd probably be retired. But the drive to like really do something in the hardware space, security space, just kept me blind. I was just blind. Nothing else mattered. I didn't care for any other thing. If Fintech was making money, it's not my business. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to succeed at it. It was just blind passion, which is why people often say you should do what you're passionate about. Because if you don't, there were times where you get tired. There will be times where you don't have money to continue. There will be times where what am I doing? I've poured in. People called me stupid.
Where's the ROI?
What's the ROI? I'm not making any money. My first prototype took me 3 years. Poured in over $450,000.
What?
Yeah. Our first working prototype, that was how we came on board. Started working 2019 December.
Yes. Just before the event. I think what was in the news was some virus coming out of China. That was the other thing in the news, and then the Americans striking that Iranian general Soleimani, and then I see this, I'm like, okay. So
it took me 3 years, to get the first working prototype in 2019. Look at me, it's funny now, but at that time my business suffered because that was what was financing every stupid dream I had about defense. Money I could have used for other things, I put it into this. I reached out to, obviously, we tried to reach out to people at that time, but there is nobody doing defense tech in Nigeria. They don't even recognize Nigerians as hardware people. I wouldn't blame people that didn't even want to listen at that time, because it's not a space Africans in general, Nigerians are playing at all. But I just wanted my goods to get to the destination on time. That was myself.
So the whole idea was just to solve your own problem?
It was just to solve my own problem. That I knew my problem. I knew a lot of other people in the market had similar problem.
Okay, so you were hoping that after you solved the problem, you build a business out of it?
Not necessarily. Just informally. I say, your container when they go east, I go track and we don't follow. Basically, it wasn't anything. But over time, that thinking changes from that to okay, this is a growing industry. Then you see what's happening globally and people talking about UAVs, trying to develop frameworks for it. And okay, this might be something. Then you see little drones come up to do like logistics, delivery systems and all that. And over there you just think, okay, this might be something. Rising with the ever increasing insecurity at that time in the company. So my thinking then moved completely away from securing my goods to wow, we need a proper surveillance system in terms of UAV in Nigeria. And you keep hearing at that time, we lack infrastructure is a problem. That's what we kept on hearing. We don't have access to the right tools to fight these insurgents and things like that. That's what we kept on hearing. So like, okay,
still keep on hearing this.
That's what we keep hearing. Yeah, so I was like, okay, then we can, since I'm building this, why not design it then for this purpose? That's why it also took that long. Because it moved from just building a normal drone or UAV that could go fly 5, 6 hours, 7 hours, whatever duration it took for the goods to get from Lagos to the north or wherever, to building a proper one that can go work 10 hours, 12 hours and fly to the north and fly back to Lagos without having to recharge and things. So the whole design, the modification, the specification had to completely change.
So you didn't find, because you mentioned that you looked for ODMs. You didn't find anyone, that's why you decided to start building?
No. I used an ODM, but the ODM is just like, I found companies that had the capacity to build.
But they were not indigenous.
But they were not in Nigeria. So it was not done in Nigeria. It's still not done in Nigeria. We probably will get to that, part of the bottlenecks and problems. So I just had partnerships with them and I did the designing myself. I took a bit of industrial design at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I don't know, it was fun. It was interesting.
Like you did a course or you just read up?
I learned. It took like 6 months. Different is YouTube. Everything is on YouTube.
Yeah,
it's a
YouTube. I just learned, picked up designs and designed something. I told them this is how I want it to look. Then with their own expertise, they say, okay, if you're looking at this, the aerodynamics might not work based on your design. We have to fix it like this. So that's how.
So you're in constant communication with them.
Constantly, they were like my whole team.
Yeah, regular.
But they were not in Nigeria.
They were
Oh,
none of this till now. None of our engineers.
I did the first test. The first prototype test was UAE now, wasn't it?
Yes, we did
It was
the
the
first.
United Arab Emirates. So,
Oh.
yeah, so it's not like it's not like
So,
I don't believe we have any shed or some location where we have something packed. You know, where you have a UAV packed within Nigeria. So it's what it is.
so where did Macdonald come into the picture? You said you spent $450,000.
Something like that.
Nobody to support you. You're your own.
My nickname is Lone Wolf at some point. I'm always on my own doing things myself.
Right. If the question is, did I put down equity? No, I did not.
No. That's different. It's where okay, so let me say how he came into the
Why did you
picture.
reach out to him? How did you find
So
out?
I met Macdonald in
2018.
2018.
Yeah.
So my partner at the time, they worked together at
romantic
consulting
partner,
firm.
if you're not clear. His romantic partner was my junior colleague, and I was close to her relatively. So
she always told me that this.
God, come on, don't do this.
No, I'm not gonna say it. In fact, don't worry, I'll cast you. She always said, "This is guy, brilliant, economic genius." Oh wow,
She knew about what you were doing and maybe the
She
challenges you had.
didn't. I'm very secretive. Very, very secretive to the point where people think I'm being deceitful. I don't tell people anything. If you're not directly
How
involved.
much does Ukah know about Kifta?
What?
How much does Ukah know right now about Kifta? How much did you?
We'll answer that later. If you're not directly involved in something, I will not tell you. No matter how close I am to you, I will not tell you. So that's how I am. I don't apologize for it, but that's how I am. So when she kept on mentioning it to me, I was like, okay. Then I met him. At the time, I actually wanted to go to Harvard, my MBA. So, kind of just spoke to him about it and we rubbed minds and stuff. So,
Yeah.
okay. Then I asked him to do something for me at the time.
Yeah. Which didn't go very well. Let's leave it at that.
Macdonald is a very meticulous man. His search for perfection
Yeah.
can often be genius and can often be a problem. So if you really want to ship something out, you might want to leave Macdonald out of it because it will go for 100% perfection. If it's not, it speaks to his person. If it's not something he can put his name behind, it won't ship it out. So at that time, that was the reason why that did not work. But over time, we got closer, and I knew he had interest in stuff like this. So whenever at different milestones, I would
You ship something.
just tell him and say, this is where I
This
am.
has happened. Like, okay, and I say there are certain things I've heard and seen. Maybe you want to pay attention to this.
Yes.
When the prototype was shown to me, that
Showing
was the decision point, if you will.
Okay, so at that time, you had not decided whether you were just showing him as a friend.
Yeah.
Showing him as a friend.
And somebody who could bring some.
This is someone that's beautiful.
Yes, but the point is, you recognize that this is somebody who could bring
Some value.
value. You know,
Because-
in terms of
A lot of value. A lot of values. A lot of values. I won't deny it. So when he's mentioned earlier, there was no equity from him. It didn't matter to me. I can't replace I've had people offer me millions of dollars in terms of equity and say they want to be co-founder. I'm saying no, because what he can bring to the table, you can't. It goes beyond money. If you talk about money, I can find money. So when you asked earlier, what is my role? That is what I pride to be my role. I do not answer most of the questions. See, I was just quiet. He knows how to. But me, I'm in the background. I am dealing with regulators, those kinds of things that you don't necessarily see. That's what I do. That's what I'm expert in. Building relationships, building connections that would aid the success, creating the right environment, structure, things like that. I don't necessarily do anything, right? I won't come and say I'm the most brilliant person like I told you earlier, but I know how to build an enabling environment for people to thrive. I will give you every tool you need to succeed at something, and I can do whatever it takes to get something.
Interesting. So when he was updating you about in all of this. What were your thoughts? Did you feel like, oh, there's something here? Or it took the prototype for you to realize that,
I'm less of an optimist than he is.
Okay.
So there was always this sense that, and you have a catalog of these sorts of stories. There are many young people dreaming and not fallaciously. They're really looking. They've happened on something. They've invented something, and well, it never goes beyond that. Or they've seen, okay, is this possible? Can we try this? This is an idea. It makes sense, and it never quite gets beyond that. So it's entirely possible to get ahead of oneself, in terms of whether what you're tinkering with is truly viable and whether you can sustain it and see it through. And so I think that I was not lacking in enthusiasm. The reason I wasn't lacking in enthusiasm was because of those teenage boyhood to adulthood fascination, because of my own particular interest in this area. It wasn't like I came into this like, what's this guy talking about? So that was not the thing. I was fascinated by the prospect, but I also, without being able to appreciate certain details, technical implications, and all of the dimensions of building any business, much less one in this space that doesn't have a base, that has too little a base, if there's any, because I'm not entirely sure that, it's zero. I do think that there are other people in this space, some of them who have built up relationships too that are critical. But I had heard of one person. I'm not going to say who he is. I've heard of one person prior. I had heard of one person who was in that space. I didn't know the nature of the specific aspect of the defense space industry that he was into, but I had heard of somebody. And part of what I did was I told him, there's somebody in this space. And so in terms of firming up belief, that was what was kind of like a bit of a spur. But then if there was any ambivalence about it, it vanished when I saw it. It vanished. Because no, not physically. I saw a demonstration, a video demonstration that he showed me. I was like, okay, fine. So if we have this, so now many businesses start up as ideas and never go beyond. But we already have a story in that we have an asset, a physical asset, stemming from the dream, which then at least in terms of outlook, even if this thing hits the rocks, somebody will say at least they got to the point where they developed an asset. Mm-hmm. What can we do in terms of layering their dream or layering any vision, and in this case, an asset that potentially has multiple uses, that is adaptable. So what do we then do? If somebody somewhere says, okay, this bunch of boys started this thing and they couldn't see it through for whatever reason, somebody will even say, okay, they have an asset. Let's use that asset and build up something. So I think that in that sense, in terms of startups that never quite, we haven't scaled, so nobody's saying that. But in terms of startups that never quite get off ground, let me say a critical threshold had been crossed, in my view.
Right. Okay, so 3 years down the line for $450,000. As we your textile business suffered.
It suffered. It suffered.
And I'm sure your team will like, is this maybe your finance. So anyway, you crossed one hurdle.
Yeah.
What was the next hardest thing?
Next hardest thing is probably still the hardest thing now.
I wouldn't frame the question as what was. I think it's a continuing. I wouldn't frame the question as what was. I think it's a continuing.
I think you've always. How would I put this? I'd say our biggest challenge be infrastructural challenges.
Okay.
In terms of,
If you're going to build this thing here, can you do it?
we want to build this
Is it
here.
possible to build?
We still can't do it. The
numbers
numbers
we
don't.
do not have to be the engineers on site. We can bring in whoever we need to, the partners to do it. But if you want to build this thing,
Right
here,
here.
can you do it? That's the first question. Is it even possible to do it?
The numbers don't allow.
It's not just numbers.
Wow.
Space.
Everything, the space doesn't allow.
Is the, you know.
Educate me.
It's so okay. I work at a manufacturing company. That's what you need to know for now. And so Nigeria will tell us 12 gigawatts. They tell us 12 gigawatts of installed power, right? We can't ship more than 4 gigawatts of that based on transmission and distribution network, and then all of the technical losses and efficiencies, whatever in between. So, a lot of private power is required. I've heard, I'm not saying that that's a number you should take to the bank. I'm saying that I've heard that when you aggregate a lot of private power provision and add it to the 12 gigawatts that's installed on the grid, you get to 30 gigawatts, which explains a lot because the 4 gigawatts that we have running seems too small to keep many spaces, as many spaces as we have in this country, even lit up in the first place, right? So the company I work at has its own turbines, so it doesn't even much care for whatever what disco is doing. That's what you understand. So independent power. Now, that's light manufacturing. High-tech manufacturing? If you cannot be absolutely certain that this thing is going to be stable, really
Standard
really
consistent.
stable,
If you're saying
then
the power
you
is giving
can,
off.
you can blow everything up in one.
If
night.
you say you for this thing to work, it needs, for example, 12 volts or whatever. It has to say 12 volts forever and ever. If it moves from 12.1,
if you can't be certain that can happen, and that's just infrastructure.
That's a lot.
We're not even going to regulation
And then talents too.
talent.
So I noticed that's how I noticed you're hiring aggressive.
So
Tell me about that.
in terms of talent, many people don't yet know that there's
Something like this.
people that play in the hardware space. And people that are playing the hardware space don't come out to say we're playing the hardware space.
True. I know a few. Do you know that? Are you aware that there's a convention going on in Aba right now? Hardware convention.
Oh, okay.
And reporters are there.
I'm not even interested. I'm not interested.
It's true. Part of it is even fear.
A lot of people
We
don't
want this is high capex at the outset. Your fixed cost is going to be massive. So can you even do it?
Very true.
I was looking.
Can you even do it?
I was looking to him the other day. And I was
Truly,
like,
I'm not sure we fully answered that question because we're trying to do caprices now, but can you even get enough to do it? And you know, this thing is the word that matters a lot is thresholds, right? There has to be a minimum level that you can reach before anything is possible. So, I don't think you want to share more light, but
so for talent, because of the kinds of things we're doing, we can't afford to hire entry level, mid level people. Because security, for one, there can be mistakes. So you're looking for senior level guys. Senior level guys are not in Nigeria. The senior level guys that are in Nigeria, they won't work for you. I can't afford to pay them. And this goes to the pay thing that was being talked about a couple of weeks ago about people having multiple remote jobs and the salary not being competitive. At this point in time, I can't even compete with a Lockheed Martin or people playing in my space.
yeah.
A Lockheed Martin, my pay is aeronautic engineer, $200,000, $300,000 a year. I can't afford that. So here,
How much is the prototype?
and a senior engineer knows that if he's that good, they will scoop him up. So how do I compete with that? I can't. But I can go ahead and do an OEM, which I did, with another company and say, let's have this agreement. Over the time, we'll do this, do this, do this. So that has been the easiest way to build. But now that we're trying to really indigenize it, we want to do this here, and we just want an enabling environment. we're not asking for freebies. Just give us something enabling. The amount of FDI that can come in as a result of this, I don't think they're seeing it yet.
It's more like, okay, make clear frameworks, right? Make frameworks clear. If the requirement is, okay, you need to register this, design that. Let's be clear, that's first. We understand that sometimes innovation will get ahead of policymakers and regulators. We understand that that's the nature of this. I'm sure you guys are on top of the conversation around the NIDA bill and a lot of other stuff that's coming out about Abuja, which at least we understand that the industry is, if not dejected by, at least even possibly terrified by, as to survivability and all of that. So the question is, what does it mean when regulators have to play catch up to innovation, and when the imperative of playing catch up means that often ends up to mean hostility? It often ends up that way. I'm not saying that it's necessarily that way. What does it mean when the reaction that, oh, okay, this has happened, let's get on, so let's do a bit more command and control. Let's set up a command and control framework to ensure that our fingers are in it, our eyes are in it, and all of that. So would that happen? Who knows? Yes, there's the general conversation around enabling environment, but until, for instance, one is confident that there can be infrastructural stability that defrays some of the costs of setting up the apparatus to build stuff like this, it will have to continue to rely on say, okay, having your partners who have made their own investments, by the way, in their own capabilities, whilst you continue to interface with them and you tell them, okay, this is the market, this is the space that I want to cover, make this available, and then let us then take what you have produced in our name based on whatever international supply chain arrangements, in terms of primacy of ownership of the asset, because Apple owns Apple, even though Foxconn puts together the parts, so that sort of thing. So it's in terms of whatever, so make that available to us so that we can then deploy it to whatever use that we see as most viable at this point in these spaces that we have identified that there's a market for it. So I think that's the other thing. And in terms of use case, there's an emerging really good idea. I've hinted at it, and that's the cargo logistics thing. And there is a context that makes that interesting.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. But what I want to know, what I'm curious about is, so how are you keeping the lights on? Correct me if I'm wrong, you have a prototype or no product yet.
We've gone far beyond that.
Okay, is there a client base? Is there a way they are keeping the lights on?
Thankfully, I'd say I think we've worked with more clients outside the country than in the country, both private and public.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yes. We are working with certain.
We don't want to be too we don't have to divulge details, because some of these things are, first of all, what's the level of negotiation that's still ongoing. There are levels of negotiations that's still ongoing. Certain things aren't too clear. Certain things that might be torpedoed by public disclosure.
Okay, I understand that. But for the ones you've already worked with, what services are you ranging, or products, or what?
Funny enough, at the beginning of the interview, you mentioned software. I think I should have butted in when you
butted in stuff. No, what I said was that we're not moving away from hardware. I didn't foreclose the possibility that software was going to be part of the product.
At earlier stages, we're trying to develop different technologies and all that to build what we wanted to build. I stumbled upon pipeline security. So we've done work in terms of pipeline security.
Like for the oil and gas industry.
Yes.
Yes.
We have a couple of clients in the power sector, though not in Nigeria.
No, in Nigeria.
At this point, no. At this point, no.
Interesting.
We have like perimeter intrusion and detection systems for border security. Though we, like I said, still not in Nigeria. So in terms of keeping the lights on, we have worked with private companies and actually one or two governments outside the country.
Outside the country.
Yes.
And what you're doing for them is mostly security in terms of,
yes, mostly
a mix of
security.
hardware and software.
Yes.
It's
Basically protecting their critical assets and infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. That's what we've done for the
So it doesn't mean that we've reached full-scale procurement deals and all of that.
Yeah.
Some of it is, these guys have something, so let's look into it.
Funny enough, they don't get to reach out to us directly. Sometimes they have people that they do that they work with, and those ones reach out to us and want to use our technologies for whatever purpose they want to do, which is so it's not like we have direct access. Some of these deals we do not have direct access to the governments.
Okay.
They go through their own people.
You're like subcontractors.
Yes. So,
But if for example I wanted to protect something, I can approach you guys.
yes.
And then
We'll look at our shall we say
assets.
our asset base and our physical assets and our technological assets, I should say, and then say, okay, do we have a solution that can address this?
So
Or
that
else
means,
can we ask our partners, can we innovate something like that?
So you have a team, I'm guessing, like a team of not just is now beyond both of you. So there's a team, but then there's still a challenge of getting more people on the team to build those things locally. Okay. So have you gotten any outside investments so far?
No.
Capital?
No.
Well, as we are in the process of that.
We're thinking about it.
I would say we're thinking well, working on it is as bad as thinking about it in terms of using a phrase to, more or less throw a question or dismiss it or something like that. But it's...
We're testing the waters.
We
throw it to...
That's what you're trying to crunch some numbers, you're meeting certain people. You say, okay, you say the idea, there's a light bulb moment. Oh, that seems interesting. But then, okay, there's the harder work of actually convincing people to put their money down, which is
still ties to the environment
and all of that.
So are you full-time with it now?
I'm still... Two of them. I'm a full-time worker in two of them.
The textiles.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So, what apart from you've mentioned talents, you've mentioned the environment, infrastructure, capital. Are there any other challenges?
Or regulation too.
Yeah, regulation. Yeah. Like, okay, let's talk about that regulation. Are there any challenges that can you go into specifics? Is what I mean. Is it possible to go into specifics?
We love our regulators. We love them immensely, and they're doing a fantastic job. They're doing a fantastic job. But like you said, innovations often outpace the regulation.
Okay.
But the one thing that the two frameworks that have been developed that I strongly believe should be implemented. One is the Open Skies Agreement.
That's actually continental. That's even Yamoussoukro. So it's, if you, for instance, the idea is if you are going to move cargo because we have a
intra-African trade and things
we
like
have a free
that.
trade area, then probably the Convention on Aviation probably needs to evolve to cover unmanned aerial vehicles. I don't think it does. I think the Yamoussoukro Convention is 1999. I don't think this industry, even globally, or something anybody had envisaged would be the sort of thing you would cover and all of that. Domestically, well, I think, and that's where this most matters, because maybe Africa is too far. No, not too far. Even AFCFTA, a lot of protocols are still being discussed, much as they've launched, but a lot of protocols are still being discussed. So in terms of market viability and all of that, it's still a medium-term thing. If this is going to take off, it's going to probably take off within Nigeria. So in terms of the regulatory apparatus, so got to get a license here and a license there. So it's Civil Aviation Authority, it's FAN, it's the Office of the National Security Advisor because of the security dimension of, also that's of the National Security Advisor in terms of the security dimension of having UAVs around and all of that. So so there are requirements, some of which we have already fulfilled. I think we've paid for the license to fly. We already have license to fly UAVs in Nigeria. So it's so that's one dimension to it. Right now, it's not exactly clear if you want to get down to the specifics of our space, what the regulation will be like. And this is why I keep going back to what we've seen evolve in the tech space in recent weeks and months, because it's this sort of thing where you guys keep doing whatever you want, or at least people innovate and then start running their operations before the regulators figure out that they've got to get beam their searchlight on this space. I correct me if I'm wrong, as tech reporters, I think that's the way fintech and all the other sectors have evolved.
Yeah, that's
so it's before the regulators, so it's already this sort of thing. I mean, some might say there are places where a startup bill would have been in place before Paystack and Flutterwave and the others closed the deals that they closed. But now they're looking around and they're seeing some interesting numbers. So $200 million here, $1 billion here valuation. Oh, somebody's bringing in this much amount of money. OPAs, even though those OPAs numbers, well, that's top already. All of that. So, Kuda. So we already have names in that space, and they're looking at them like, we don't have enough money now. So look at these numbers that are moving around. So the question is, what would then if we cross the hurdles and get a wider swathe of stakeholders excited, how will the government now begin to pay attention? Or what will be the nature of the attention that regulators will pay? So it's not just even in the present, because there's a requirement to register for this, there's a requirement to register for this, a requirement to register for that. But I'm not sure that people have thought through all of the conceivable frameworks that they can think through at this point. And so it's not yet biting, but it might.
So the question is there a regulator? Because what I'm saying is
there's no one regulator.
There's no one regulator.
Okay.
So NCAA is important because it's civil aviation, airspace management, because they work closely with FAN. Now, again, this is a technical question that's not been fully answered. Will we have to, if you're running, so this is not your small, however by however dimension drone that you can fly over weddings and take photographs, or events and take photographs, or the type that you can fly at higher altitude and take panoramic pictures of Lagos, the Marina, or VLOS, and then take those really nice looking shots of Lekki Ikoyi Link Bridge and all of those other places. So this isn't that. This is a bit much higher altitude, but say for instance aerial surveillance, not anywhere near as high as what satellites can do, but
it can go 5,000 feet.
Okay, so that's a technical. That's a technical rubric that I am not as very on top of as he is. So that level of surveillance. Then, if you're also going to fly cargo, for instance, that sort of thing. So it means, where does it take off? Where does it land? What kind of capacity in terms of size of craft would it be? Or what's the kind of capacity in terms of size of craft would it be? And what does it mean in terms of landing space and takeoff space? Would then that put us under the jurisdiction of, say, the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria? So that's another dimension to the regulation. The third, of course, is because of the security dimensions, and nobody wants to put you in the hands of the National Intelligence Agency, for instance. So a lot of that security dimension is being managed out of the Office of the National Security Advisor to the President. So you have to obtain a license to operate something that is suited to that purpose. from ONSA.
But you're engaging all these bodies.
Of course.
We're trying our best. We're trying our best to.
So in terms of, at least just in terms of beyond business regulation, which already has a multiplicity of agencies, MDAs involved, there is the industry specific regulation. And this, so far as we can see now, that's the tripartite body, those are the tripartite body, the three bodies that we can see that are, cross-cutting in the regulation of.
And they are aware
of
that
that
exists.
space.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know how much.
I would say we're trying our best to engage them and talk to them and get these licenses. So the license you need for our normal surveillance drone is different from what you need if we do the cargo UAVs, because most of the framework doesn't go beyond it doesn't account for those. There was a framework released in May 2020. It doesn't account for any of this. It accounts for much smaller RPAs, not
remote piloted aircraft, just in case.
So it
doesn't really
I don't know, but I kind of figured out
really account for this. But we're trying to engage them. We're trying to get these licenses, which is why we haven't really working here in the Nigerian space, because it's national security, to be honest with you. I do not blame them. If you have a UAV that can fly 5,000 feet in the air,
somebody needs to know that.
Somebody needs to
know that it's there. You can modify it and shoot somebody.
You want to make sure
that
everything is perfect. Even aside the national security aspect of it, the fact that you don't want to collide with other airline carriers, you want to those things have to be
those who are air traffic control need to know that there's other object in the air, and for the life of me, you can't communicate with it because it's not manned. You can only communicate with the guy on the ground. So there's
like the presidency should know about what that's what my just they should know. The presidency.
I don't know if they know.
So a specific question is, a specific way to put it, have you engaged the president? Let me put it that way.
I should engage Asurok.
Well, if ONSA is going to license.
Let me tell you something. The first time I tried to go to NCAA, the security guard didn't let me go in.
the famous security guys.
They didn't let me go in. They were like, no appointment, no entry. But I saw a white man that didn't have an appointment and he waltzed in.
Life happens.
No, that's not life. That's actually not life. So you get, so if I cannot get into NCAA to go and speak to them and say, okay, well, this is what I intend doing. I have this product and I want to bring it in and start operations in Nigeria. And the security guy is not letting me in. How do you think I get access to Asurok?
Interesting.
I can't get access to Asurok. So that might seem like a naive take, but it's that difficult for Nigerian entrepreneurs to see these regulators. I know a lot of people that wanted to go to CBN in fintech, they couldn't access the building in Abuja. They don't let them in.
So, but some people argue about how that is why I'm just
No. Go ahead.
Which is why you should build relationships with these people. You should not ignore them.
How do you build relationships with them when you can't access them?
Oh, well,
good question.
It's a good question.
That's a good question.
You can't access them. How do you build relationships
And
with them?
sometimes when you build relationships with them, they still turn their back. So like
I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. But my own problem is the access. I don't know about interest change.
No, what he's saying is, okay, it's not as though there aren't advocates for these tech spaces in Abuja, for instance, but yet you have the NIDA bill, for instance. So that's the sort of thing.
I don't know nothing about that. I know nothing about that. I just think I can only speak to what concerns my industry, and I think we just need to be able to access this. Talk to these regulators more. Let's sit down, brainstorm, develop frameworks together. Let's not just. There's no such thing as one size fits all. In a developing space, you need to always go with the flow, in quote. If something is going towards this direction, you need to envisage that, okay, if it's going towards this direction, at some point it will get there. And create systems in place for it to get there. That's what I'm saying. like what he said, we really want to go into the logistics sector by building a cargo UAV. There is no framework for that.
And to solve a lot of problems.
I think it would.
Well,
it would. So there's no
a
framework.
lot of problems. It's just I don't want to go into the numbers and all that.
That's the thing. And I understand. There are people who have dreamed up things in this part of the world that are big. And so, but they really don't know how to get from A to B. And even though they have some sense of how to get from A to B, if other people don't understand what they're trying to do, I don't know. I don't know. The defense industry out of the US grew out of World War II, right? So there was a background. The existing companies in the manufacturing space, auto and aviation, were the ones who had to adapt their plans to roll out the B-2 bombers and the others for the war. And then in the aftermath of that, a new framework of national security was created. It spawned this and spawned that. The DoD didn't exist before World War II. It was called the Office of, it was called the War Ministry or War Department, whatever it is. They had to become a Department of Defense. They had to become a National Security Agency. They transformed the Office of Strategic Services into the CIA, blah, blah, blah. So they created all of these. And then some people were thinking, okay, fine, if we needed this during World War II, and we're now have an entire framework for defense and all of that, so who's going to put out hardware? And it happened so quickly that, Lockheed and the others came up. Eisenhower left the White House talking about the military-industrial complex. He already had an interesting phrase for it that stuck till today. So that sort of thing happened. So they had a flaw in which there was already something to build on. So people had already built hardware, military hardware. So it was a question of becoming specialists in that space. That was just pretty much it. Now, how is it going to work? Are we going to have partnerships with existing defense contractors elsewhere? Probably we have conversations. But again, risk, environment, how do you balance that against? Do you just integrate your system into those who already can see things, who pretty much can dimension your industry for you, even though you are here and they are not? Do you just roll up your enterprise and say, okay, take it over, pay us off and take it over, or just roll us up, make us all of your whatever, subsidiaries, whatever it is, and all of that, so that everything that you have, we can then bring. Is that the model? Do we want that model? Is it that different from them just selling us arms? I don't know. See, so the point is, blue sky, lots of things are not clear, even to us as founders. There are lots of things that are not very, very clear. And it might also be that just because of national security considerations, there are things that we are underestimating what those in Abuja already know. It is possible. I don't rule it out. You are underestimating relationships that they have built, even with people that we may consider competitors. Some of which is whether or not there's legislative oversight, some of which is overseen by high-level security protocols, so little disclosure of anything. So it's entirely possible that they know. But he's good at building relationships, but until you can either get in, or if you're too concerned that the security climate is too murky and all of that, maybe you want to step back a little bit until that context is better understood. So maybe you do a bit more civilian stuff, which is why what we're doing is interesting. Maybe until the coast is really clear and say, okay, this is how you want to approach this market. Maybe that. So, if the understanding was that, because we have advanced to a certain point that we already know, we already have a lot of answers to questions that we can already see as important. That's not a correct notion. It's not a correct notion. So it's still a question of there are some engagements that we're trying to do, see if what that means in terms of whether we are able to raise a bit more capital and do some things that will not immediately get people, especially investors, like, nah, that's pie in the sky. This one is pie in the sky, but you've done this, so let's start with this, and then let's build that up. I can tell you for a fact that the cargo logistics thing has been more interesting to investors.
Of course.
than
Maybe say that.
Because nobody wants to be like, I don't want to get into the mess.
In fact, we've had people tell us
security in Africa, much less.
Don't call yourself a defense company. Just call yourself an aerotech company.
Why are you still at this? Because you there are so many moving parts. You've mentioned regulation, you mentioned talent and everything, and then investors not coming in. What? Don't you ever feel like giving up?
No.
No. Why?
Never crossed my mind.
Interesting.
Because first, the industry, there's so much potential in the industry. And in terms of logistics and trade, which is why we're going into that sphere, the potential to connect Africa as a single market is something that gives us so much belief in terms of the African Free Trade Zone Agreement, where a supplier or a producer in the north can supply items to someone in Joburg, and they get their products within 4 hours, 3 hours.
So the idea, let me
it's so much of.
Let me just put it this way. Let's just put it this way. If just imagine you're able to get a product that means that somebody can run Lagos, Cairo, Joburg routes and deliver stuff. Just imagine that is possible. First of all, and we have. Not everything, life is what it is, there will always be contingencies, but you have most of the stuff in place that makes this viable. So that's the first thing. The other is this. It's that diversity of use. So it means you started thinking about it one way. And like I said, the critical threshold there, of course, is that we have an asset. So you started thinking about it one way. Roadblocks. Okay, so alternative use. Explore that one. Alternative use. So it's like this. If we had run into all of these challenges before getting something out, then I'd be okay. Maybe this is pie in the sky after all. But the idea that you can take one thing and then see if the idea that you can take one thing and then plug it in here, see it here, plug it in here, means that at least before you say, no, I'm done with this, you would have to have at least looked for several.
Explorers.
Yeah. So I think that, there is, usually to questions like this, there is the answer that draws from inspiration, and there's the answer from actually just technical hard facts on the ground. And the good side there are many hard facts on the ground. We spend a lot of the time talking about some of them, but the good side is before you say this can't work, you already have something that you can. There are several things you can try given what you have before you say this can't work. Mm-hmm. So I suppose that so far that's what as long as the innovation apparatus, whatever it is, even if it's just our brains, even if it's just information, even if it's just talking to people that we know that know about this, and sort of gleaning ideas, until that runs out, or at least until you have the sense that it's run out, I suppose that it's not fair to say, okay, just put a stop to it. Yeah,
that's interesting point. But the thing is, right now you still don't have just a prototype, right? Yeah. You do not have capital to produce this.
I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
When you say prototype, we've actually, like I said, we've worked with both private and so we've actually built and sold.
Oh, you use the
smaller capacity drones.
Oh, okay.
Not the cargo ones.
When you mentioned pipeline security, I thought maybe it was like
that's different.
Sensors and
that's different. We actually sold UAVs that we built.
Small capacity
to
UAVs.
Surveillance.
Just And in terms of surface area, limited.
Okay.
You understand? So it's not like wide.
Okay. Maybe
You
like
know,
private companies that need it for
precisely just a little bit of space and all of that. Just
Okay.
keep a particular space
Secure.
Okay.
You know,
So-
and all of that. So it's not like there's zero activity.
Okay.
But we are still in the red. If you know what I
No,
mean.
that's
vis-a-vis
that's expected.
the layout.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so would you personally, based on the journey you've had, you started with this on your hunch, people thought you were crazy, you found this far. Would you advise anybody that is looking to come into the defense tech space to come in? And not just defense tech now. Okay, let's put it, first of all, first level, hardware in general.
Okay.
In Nigeria. Then defense tech.
I like that you went back to hardware. You know why? You know why I like it? Because the second question is, would you invite the competition to enter? Which is
No. I think competition breeds
Or-
innovation.
oh, okay, that's one too.
So
Collaborations are possible, but that's by the way. Hardware, absolutely. Try. Hedge, but try. Hedge if you can.
You remember I said he has what? A 9 to 5.
I have a 9 to 5. So.
I have what? A textile business. I'm never gonna go hungry. I would live my life properly.
So
It's
hedge
standard.
or try.
You
Or
get me?
try. Unless you are the kind of dreamer who can give a huge chunk of it up to somebody who's got the resources that you don't have.
Do we have people like that?
I don't know.
People don't really invest in
I
hardware.
Exactly,
don't
that's what I'm
know.
saying. Do we have
Like
people
I
like
said,
If I-
So, okay. Think about what we've told you. So defense. That's where it all started, right? And now we're moving into civilian space. And we're actually okay. Yeah, you would have to manufacture the equipment, but in the end, it's somewhat a service, which is problematic to our original vision, right? That you want to actually have an industrial capacity. We have manufacturing industries in Africa, obviously, but it's between food processing, FMCGs. By the time you take, I'm an economist, I know what Nigeria's GDP numbers look like to a very granular level. I've been playing with those numbers for a long time. So if you take food, beverage, and tobacco, you already have approximately half of Nigeria's manufacturing space. That's very light industry, that's basic stuff. So the question is, if there is a tech revolution going on in services, why is it not being represented in this industrial space? Which, by the way, does better in terms of creating jobs, right? So this is broader strategic developmental consideration. Now, so that the inspiration that comes from that hole that needs to be filled or plugged is why it is advisable for people to do hardware. Challenges, plenty. We haven't seen the entire outlook of the challenges, yet we have already enumerated a lot of interesting things for anybody who is getting into this to chew on. But one, if the origin of it is a passion, or you've happened on something that is really, really, really good, you can't nip it in the bud without trying what it is, without trying to see if you can get it to fruition. But like I said, I don't know, there's a delicate point that I want to make. It's a very, very delicate point, and if it's possible, you guys can either cut it out or nuance it in the way you report.
Yeah.
It's a very delicate point and even very sensitive from a standpoint. Economically, there's a significant disparity in our backgrounds, right? Let me say, I am more middle class than he is. He is a bit more above middle class.
Yeah, it's karma.
It's a point. It's a veritable point. And the reason is this. The reason I'm making that point is this. It becomes possible to take certain risks from certain standpoints and others. That is the point. That's why when we started the saying hedge, but hedge. Because it's a grind. It's a very, very difficult grind.
It's a long process. I think that's what we're trying to find. It's a long
You have to be
tasking.
the sort of person who can carry on sustaining a fairly comfortable existence even when your ROI hasn't come in for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yes, interesting.
And you should be that person that doesn't need validation, motivation from anywhere. You should be enough to motivate yourself and keep going. Because hardware is, as much as he would say come in, I would say if you want to come in, you have to be passionate. I keep saying that thing. You don't come into hardware because you feel like I make money. It goes beyond that. Come in because if you're certain and you're passionate that there is something that you can add to this industry. It's not like software or where you can just ship out the product in 2 weeks. I heard Odu say the Piggyverse, they sat down, they saw that maybe within a month they already wrote out the first.
Right.
It doesn't
They
work.
were here 2 years ago. They were barely, we didn't know these things.
It doesn't work like
that. We got very intimate with them during the lockdowns when social media had to really preoccupy our lives, right? You know, that was when really we were like, okay, this is stuff happening. And then in the middle of NSAS, Paystack does what it does. Just like guys in the middle of NSAS, why were they negotiating?
If you're coming in, no, it's a long journey. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's more like a decathlon. You will swim, you will ride bicycle, you will jog. Yeah, that's what hardware is about. It's not and they're actually really brilliant people, brilliant Nigerians. I met a couple last couple of weeks who are in the hardware space. I'm sorry, I have to name a few.
Name them, please, and we would like to know where they are and how we can reach out to
Samuel, I can't really remember his last name now. He's an alumni of MIT. Brilliant guy. Brilliant boy. They're really good people in the hardware space. It's very sought after, so it's not easy to get them. But my plea to the general public in the hardware space is if you're passionate and you're brilliant, you want to make a change in terms of building unmanned systems, counter-UAS systems, we want you at Kifta. We want us to build something revolutionary. He was afraid to use that word. I will use it in trying to disrupt certain industries that seem so tight. We want to let's I keep going back to this cargo UAV. For me, it's making Africa one market. It's bringing consumers and producers quickly. It's giving people disposable income in terms of, and I make this reference a lot. Agriculture, for example, now a basket of tomato costs 150 or 200 naira in Maiduguri, but it comes to Lagos 200 naira. But it comes to Lagos and they sell it for 6,500. The middleman will tell you they incur the risk along with driving and security. Same problem I had too that pushed me. They'll tell you they incur the risk. So, but imagine where there's a system where it just comes. There. You get me? So you cut off all that middleman drama. The people in the market can easily talk to the farmers. They can sell at a better price. They earn more money. They have more disposable income. Imagine even if the farmer is selling it at 1,000, that's 400% more than what he's selling originally. He has more disposable income. This food inflation will come down. These things would
use applicability.
It affects a lot of things. It touches a lot of things, which is why we're really psyched about going into this cargo UAV space, because it will change a lot of people's lives. As much as we know it will change our lives too, we know that the ability to change individual lives, and it's there, and that's why we're really pushing for it now in terms of moving away from just normal security and doing that. So that's my 2 cents about coming to hardware space, and people that we're looking for, please come. Let's build this together. Let's make this proper change. Let's change people's lives individually. Let's improve our economy. Let's do something. I don't know. I'm not a talker. I don't know how to give powerful speeches and all of that. Let's just come in and just build this thing together.
I noticed you did a Harvard, is it MBA?
No,
yeah, it's like I wanted to, but I took like a Harvard online kind of vibe.
Okay. I wanted to ask. What I wanted to ask was, did you feel like you needed that to help you play in this space, or?
So my partner at the time, whom I met her with. Him through, actually told me something. I think it's the frankest advice I use that anyone has ever given me. It hurt at the time, but it was true. She said, the gap between my passion and my understanding and skill is far. It's wide. So I had to like, okay, this girl is actually saying something true here. I have this, I can do whatever. But the understanding of the micro and granular details and how to go about this in terms of the business, I really didn't possess. I knew how I was running a business. My manufacturing business was easy. Oh, it's not hard. I had this stake. I have a stake in the factory that produces. I have a stake in the cotton farm. So I'm able to get there. I do the designs. So that was easy. I didn't even really need too much. But for this, I knew I needed understanding of microeconomics, macroeconomics, accounting, finance. I knew I needed everything. I was coming from a chemical engineering background. So I had to build myself up.
And it's not a story that's over, by the way. It's still something that...
So just constantly learning.
Yeah.
I can't count the amount of...
It's conceivable that the MBA in full skill MBA...
It's still... I was... Even PhD, you don't ever stop learning.
Or DBA.
If I tell people that I would ever do an MBA, people would think I'm mad. Because I never liked school. I never liked school. I was more of the doing. I want to do. Which is another problem with the educational system over here. Staying in class and reading was not my thing. I just wanted to do. I wanted to feel. I wanted to touch. So it seemed like I wasn't doing well in school because that was all I was doing.
Business all over the business.
Yeah, I just wanted to really feel. I wanted to really understand. So even the courses I really liked in school, like engineering economics, were business-related courses. I loved it. Or plant design, things like that. Those were the things I really liked because they were relating to what I wanted to do. And it takes me to something I'd done earlier. I had like a processing plant, like a cassava processing plant back in uni. Where from cassava, we go to starch, we go to gari, we go to biofuel. I was exporting biofuel to Malaysia at some point. So that's another thing I'd done in my uni. So I was always into the feeling part of it. You get? So... where was I coming from? Thoughts just keep flying away.
Just go.
The point, the context is the point of it is somebody who's continuing to dare in these things, and then
the constant learning and growing and experiencing.
Whose love of his life told him at some point that guy you need to build certain capacities. So that's really the point of reconciliation. In my case, this sits at an intersection. So I started my career in corporate consulting, and you could say public policy, but it's an intersection of so it's corporate consulting and public policy, and the baseline is just simply applying economics, mostly micro. So there's that. There's the geopolitics. If you visit my Twitter feed, you'll see the things. Afghanistan is all over my Twitter for obvious reasons. So that's another line. So that's another line crossing the specific fascination with defense contractors that I spoke to. So there were meeting points, and it's like, okay, this crosses all of those lines. This meets at the point that crosses all of these lines.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm asking a few more questions.
No.
I want to be able to weave this story.
Okay, please.
So, your partner telling you needed to close the gap between your passion and your skill, was that what led to her introducing you to him?
No.
It had already happened.
That happened.
We had already been introduced.
That was what led to me to actually now really say, okay, I need to learn more.
Okay, talking to the thing.
No, I wanted to be... People ask you asked what's my role in Kifta at the beginning of the question. I probably didn't answer that properly, but I knew at some point I would get that question. I didn't just want to be the guy with the money. Anyone can be the guy with the money. Which is why I also picked up industrial design to design the UAV. I wanted to be the guy that was bringing proper value aside money. We all know if that money can, but anyone can be the guy with the money. I wanted to be the guy that understood how design work. I wanted to be the guy that understood the finance part, everything part, the marketing strategies, the supply chain strategies, everything. So I wanted to learn all of those things. And I knew at some point that to get to the point where we need to get to, we would have to engage other people. So I didn't want to come into a negotiation depending on just what my lawyers or whatever anyone told me. I wanted to understand context of of everything that I'll be said in whatever business meeting, whatever engineering meeting, how engineering and cost align. We knew that from our chemical engineering background. But I wanted to be knowledgeable about every part of the business that didn't have to do with money. So I said, I can't count the amount of courses I've taken. I've taken courses from Harvard. I've taken courses from Wharton.
Yeah,
UPenn. I've taken courses from Rice University. So it's a constant learning process. Learning and always learning and trying to increase my knowledge gap. And I've reduced the knowledge gap between the passion and you can't ever stop learning things.
Yeah. This passion thing, I want to know where it came from. Like when you said you run a lot of businesses in school, was there something back home was it someone that told that inspired you to do that? Was it just because you wanted to?
No, I won't give out too much. I just say I'm from.
That I think you should.
My parents are proper business people, both sides. So all I've known is business. So I see the drive from both of them in terms of how dedicated they are to their work. So that really got instilled in me.
So where did you go to school then? Why did you go and study engineering?
Because I was really brilliant in secondary school. I had like 6 A's in my WAEC. I was really brilliant, and I think I also said there's one man that deceived me. He's late now, so I won't speak bad of him. I wanted to read petroleum and gas engineering. That was what I wanted to read. But with advice, he said, read chemical engineering, it takes everything. I shouldn't have. I should have. Chemical engineering is so different from petroleum and gas engineering. Very different.
We say thanks to him because else you would have been swallowed up by the oil and gas space.
Yeah,
and the tech economy that we are hoping to evolve to replace hydrocarbons, you might not be even involved in it.
So business has always been.
So who knows?
So it's always been in my life, and when I got to a point in school when I realized I'm not going to graduate with first class. I might not graduate with a 2-1. So I told myself, I cannot lose money and lose education. I have to gain one. I have to, and that's the truth. I told myself, I have to. If they don't know me as the brainy in the school, they must know me as one of the richest people in this school.
From sheer exertion, not.
So that's the honest truth about it. So I started looking for my first product was something I made with my friend. He's actually in America right now. He was chemical engineer, but now he's in tech. We made instant rice. Instant rice was like noodles, boiled under 5 minutes. That was the first product I ever did. And the reason why we didn't really venture into the size capital was we didn't really understand the shelf life of Indomie can be in the cupboard for 1 year and nothing happens to it. But jollof rice is different. The shelf life is much shorter. And the jollof rice we make, we put vegetable in it. So that even speeds up the shelf life. The perishability of it. So we couldn't really figure out when year 2 or year 3, we just started doing biochemical engineering. It was really interesting. I think Dr. Gushola was Matthew. I don't know. So that pushed me into other things. Then I had the farm thingy, so it was just I started making money through the farm, and so business was just all up in my head.
Interesting.
It was just all up in my head. So that was just why. From there, then I went to textiles. I got into textile through my mom. She's a textile merchant. Yeah, so that's how she's a wholesaler. I decided I can't be going to the shop every day and be doing, Mommy, come and buy this, look at this design. I don't have that time. So I said I'm moving to producer. So that's how I got into she taught me the whole market thingy, but I just went a step forward and said I want to be producing rather than selling to end users. I'd rather sell to you guys that are wholesalers and you guys sell to the end users. So that's how my foray into business really evolved. And it's been constantly evolving over time. You make mistakes, you fall, I've had ventures that failed woefully. My tourism thing, I can't say the amount of money I pumped into it that failed completely. But you keep going, which is also why having that disposable income you mentioned is very key.
important, yeah.
I could afford to make certain mistakes. Not like I could afford, I didn't want to make those mistakes. But after I made those mistakes, I struggled.
Your
But my livelihood was not really
threatened by making those mistakes.
threatened by it.
Yeah,
I just
that-
kept
that
on.
sometimes these things can happen.
I kept on moving. I kept on
It's
doing.
it's not a joke that sometimes it's the people who see through are those who have safety nets.
Yeah, that's it.
It's not a joke. It's not. It's
But
not.
nobody gave me the safety net. Let me put that out there.
Okay.
And it's not like
It's important to-
I can say categorically, my father has never given me business money. I'm not part of those people they say they set up. I'm not a northern oligarch. My father is not a northern oligarch.
Oh, come on.
I'm gonna say it. I'm not one of those people that they've never given me 1 naira. No. It was everything that I worked hard for every dime that I'm calling now a safety net. There were times in the market I would put bale of fabric on my head inside the sun, under the rain, I'm going. There is no shame to it. I can boldly say it. So it wasn't like I came into the textile business, made money, I started from the top. No. I carried load on my head. Yeah. All the way from Balogun down to UBA car park. I was going to Dumota, going everywhere. People will need fabric. I will carry. So that, and bikes were still operational that time. I probably will have a client in Festac. I will carry bucket on my head with breeze on Third Milan going. So when you say safety nets, the people have actually worked to get to that point, labored to get to that point. So I wanted to clarify that because people will say when he mentioned upper middle class, people would think that he made money at home and they started financing him. No.
Even now, it's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, but I need to clarify.
Yeah.
They did it.
Because who can burn the money?
My father doesn't still understand what I do till date. He doesn't. You are pressing computer. That's what he still thinks. There were hurdles that were crossed to get to that point of safety net where we could then say, okay, let us try and build something that would affect or positively change people's lives.
Okay, one final question to bring everything together. Although you've kind of already answered it, but what is the vision or where do you see Kifta Technologies in the next 5 years? What is the ultimate vision?
It's a characteristic question. I'll just be very specific about it. At this point, we want, in line with the likelihood that there will be more active intra-African trade activity, we will be moving cargo across the continent using our UAVs actively. Will be a very, very, very active player in that space. I don't want to presume that there will not be people who can come into this space and potentially disrupt it. These things happen too fast these days. But that enterprise will be active, up and going. That's in terms of if you want to narrow it down to one thing that we could say is a milestone that we want to have hit by 5 years.
Okay, do you have anything to add to that?
We won't still forget our defense background.
He loves it.
I'm a defense guy.
He really loves it. And it's
Don't
good.
joke
It's
around
good.
with it.
He really, really loves
So
it.
we're not losing that. We'll still be we hope that in 5 years we want to be a part of Nigeria's security architecture fully. That is one of my own real goals. We want to be able to say we built this fighter jet in Nigeria, done by Kifta. Very important, not for my ego, but to be able to show other African countries you don't necessarily need to always buy from the West. So the capacity to do that and fill that space is very important to us, as much as we're also trying to go into the logistics sector by building the air cargo.
So you still consider yourself a defense tech company?
Maybe security is more of an umbrella word. I don't know.
No, I don't think we should say security. We should.
So what you put? If I was going to
Okay. If you're going to define
More of aerotech.
yes, let me put it this way. Aerotech, defense, logistics, and then you can imagine the possibility of more legs.
Aerotech works.
Aerotech.
Aerotech
But I
works
really
for
don't
you.
want to say Aerotech because we have other things that don't
That
have
are not
anything to do
strictly
with
speaking Aerotech, but
Aerotech.
let me put it in terms of, okay, there are many mega corporations around the world, General Electric, Siemens, there are corporations who had a niche, and then, or when you think about what they are now, I mean, AOL Time Warner at some point was a GE, if not AOL Time Warner, at least I know that MSNBC, the American media company, is somehow owned by General Electric. So there's diversification. Yeah, so it's not like the businesses, but you've got to.
Should we say we're just a technology company? I just
Yeah,
want to say technology.
no, that's vague.
Hardware technology.
Maybe that
Hardware
would be
tech is better.
maybe that would be what is distinctive. But for strategic purposes, at this point, we're more Aerotech than anything else.
Okay.
Yeah, we're more Aerotech than anything else. But like I said, if you want to represent it as hardware,
All right. Thank you for your time.